Hello, this is Brian, and I'm putting this video together to discuss the FLIR footage that we've all been seeing over the last few days, or at least since last week when the last release came out. So we were all excited initially, or some folks were excited when we had FLIR footage of the broken windows, because we felt like that clarified things for us. However, that footage that clearly showed the broken windows was well after the breach, based on a lot of great research that folks in the community have done. So, so we have clarification that we've got broken windows well after the breach. So then what about before the breach? Do we have any photos or any proof that the windows were actually broken? Actually, there is one of the FLIR videos can be adequately time-stamped to about 10:25, 10:30-ish, because it really matches the flight radar 24 pattern of November 911 Whiskey Yankee, which is a MD helicopter, that single-engine helicopter that Metro has, that was flying based on flight radar 24. And I believe this is Metro 5 based on air traffic control discussions. So what happens in this FLIR is very interesting. Metro 5 doesn't get a distance shot of the windows, even though they've got a whole surveillance package on board. Based on the FLIR that we see, they go screaming in and start circling the shooter's nest. The shooter has automatic weapons. So what folks have to realize is when you fly a helicopter, a single-engine helicopter, your biggest worry in everything is losing that engine. Because if you lose that engine, the only way to survive is to auto-rotate. Now, in order to auto-rotate, you need three things. You need altitude, you need airspeed, you need altitude, well, you need altitude and airspeed. Those are the two, and you need a landing area. Those are the three things you need if you're gonna do an auto rotation. So what happens in this is they don't have altitude. They're like at 200 feet above the ground, and they're right next to a hotel. You can't auto rotate on top of a hotel, okay? Especially when you're below the hotel. So unless they were planning on auto rotating on the taxi stand, I don't know where they were planning on auto rotating. So basically this pilot took his crew, and everybody living in the Mandalay Bay and everybody on the ground, put them all at risk by running these very erratic patterns around the Mandalay Bay instead of sitting back and taking a FLIR photo of Paddock's room. What was his intention? He was exposing his tail rotor to any bullet shots from Paddock. Paddock could have an easy shot. Exposing his engine. He only had a single engine, and he's exposing his single engine to another engine failure by getting gunshot, and he's exposing himself as a pilot to possibly getting shot. He's flying head first into the sniper's nest with a helicopter. What was he thinking? What was he thinking? It doesn't make any sense. Why would a helicopter do this erratic pattern around a sniper's nest when you only have a single engine helicopter and there's no need for this? Like, what were they doing that for? You could have gotten all the surveillance from distance. You had a top-notch surveillance package, a FLIR surveillance package. Why didn't you do that? Makes no sense. The other thing, I looked really hard to find out if I could see Paddock's windows, and it's almost uncanny how the FLIR footage cuts out a room or two away, a floor or two away from where Paddock's room is. It's almost like, you know, when you're doing all these erratic patterns, you would think at least one of the patterns you'd pick up Paddock's room and be able to, you know, it's basically simple math. You just count from the top, count across, and you'll be able to figure out where his room is. Well, if you try that, and this is on the 10:25 to 10:35 p.m. FLIR footage, if you try that, you'll see that you never get a shot of his rooms. You never get a shot of his rooms. It's almost as if either the person operating the FLIR was trying hard, which would have been really hard to do, or the FLIR was edited after it was released to us. Because I don't know how you could do all those erratic patterns circling and not accidentally pick up Paddock's room. It's amazing. You're either too far above by a floor or two, or too far below by a floor or two. But we're looking at like 7 different traffic patterns around Paddock's room, and it's impossible to see his room. It's always out of frame. How could that be? How could it always be out of frame? So the questions I have are, why was this helicopter pilot exposing himself, his crew, and everyone in the Mandalay Bay to a possible monstrous catastrophe by flying so close to a sniper's nest? And it's not just a sniper, it's a sniper with automatic weaponry. So why would you do that? That's like, what, do you have a death wish? That makes no sense. Why would you fly that close and so erratically, exposing yourself, your crew, and all the people in the Mandalay Bay to a possible helicopter crash at very low altitude, very low airspeed, with no immediate landing area? He couldn't make it to the airport if he had lost his engine. Flying those circles, there's no way he could have made it to the airport. That would have been worst case scenario. And then if he had lost his tail rotor, I see a UFO hunter. Exactly right. No risk. There's actually still risk. Those patterns he was flying were risky patterns. Whenever you're flying that close in an urban area, in a single engine helicopter, you're taking risk. Every time a single engine helicopter goes up, you're taking risk. And if you're flying low altitude, circular patterns, low airspeed, you're taking a risk. Because if you lose that engine, I don't know where he's going to auto-rotate. I don't believe he could make it to the runway with those crazy circular patterns he was running. So even if they knew Paddock was already deceased, those patterns they were flying were very, very risky. Very risky for a single-engine helicopter. And were they needed? That's the question. Why were these risky circular patterns needed? And, you know, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt now, saying they already knew Paddock was dead. Now, if you didn't know Paddock was dead, what was he thinking? I mean, it's just frightening. Is this what Metro does with their multi-million-dollar helicopters? They fly them in these erratic patterns around heavily trafficked areas? That doesn't make any sense. Why would they do this? It makes no sense. The other thing is that FLIR footage, the earlier FLIR footage, 10:25 p.m., if you look, you're always just a room away from looking at Paddock's, catching Paddock's window. I don't see how that's possible. How you could do 7 or 8 passes and never even accidentally pick up a portion of Paddock's room. It's almost as if they're always just a little bit above and a little bit below. Makes no sense. And you would think that would be their main focus. So yeah, that FLIR footage from Metro 5 is extremely interesting. What were you thinking, Metro 5 helicopter pilot? Please explain to us what you were thinking. Why were you exposing all of these civilians to the risk of a catastrophic helicopter crash by flying kamikaze style into a sniper's nest? Why were you doing that? All right, and if you want to come clean and say we already knew Paddock was dead, why were you flying these erratic patterns anyway? What is the goal of these erratic patterns? Because it's frightening. It is very frightening what you were doing. All right, so FAA, if you're out there, I think you should do an investigation on this, because we want to understand why this Las Vegas Metro Police Department is flying these erratic patterns above a hotel, right above a sniper's nest, okay? Right above a sniper's nest. And even if they knew he was dead, they should tell us they knew he was dead. Why are you flying these patterns anyway? What is going on? If there was an operational need for this, sure, but you're flying these tight circular patterns at low altitude, low airspeed, with no immediate landing area. There's no way if you lost a tail rotor or if you lost an engine, you could make it to that airport. No way. Especially at that banking maneuver you were doing, that tight banking maneuver around. Oh, it's frightening. Frightening. Like, what are these guys, cowboys? What is going on? Do they care about the lives of the people in the Mandalay Bay? That helicopter is frightening. Yeah, James, do they have drones? No, I guess not. They'd rather just fly helicopters in these tight patterns and put everybody's life at risk. It makes no sense. This makes no sense. So I would say go back to that FLIR footage, the earlier FLIR footage from 10:25 p.m. and try to see if you can look at Paddock's room. I could not find it. It was so hard for me to find it. And I was always like, a room or two away, and I could not find his room. And the other thing is, what explains this erratic helicopter pattern? These tight circles around and around a sniper's nest. How could you explain flying tight circles around a sniper's nest? What is your explanation, Metro 5? And please, if the FAA even cares about us, they should look into this, because this was frightening. Frightening behavior, especially if you're flying right above a sniper's nest. What was the tactical need to do that and expose everybody in that hotel to a possible catastrophic helicopter crash? It's frightening, frightening stuff. So I'm gonna go. I don't know if anyone has any more questions, but I'm just going to get going now, and I appreciate everyone joining me. But take a close look at that, and there's a lot of confusion around the FLIR footage. You want the FLIR footage that's time-stamped at 10:25 p.m. Yeah, if you could share that link, that'd be great, Miss Little Monster Pants. I appreciate that. And I'm going to get going. Thanks again, and have a good day. Bye-bye. Thanks very much.